Hello everyone, my name is Daniel and in this video I'll show you how to record brilliant 4K video with your Nikon D7500. So, when we have a look at our D7500, the first thing we do is of course turning it on. The next thing we make sure is that we are in manual mode, giving us full control about the exposure time and the aperture. So let's not yet take a look at the aperture. First, let's make sure we are using exposure time of 1/60, and this is because we are later shooting 4K video with 30 frames per second, and for 30 frames per second the 1/60 value here in the exposure time is the best. So make clear these settings are set here. So after that we go to the menu and we go to the movie shooting menu, which is the menu with a green icon over here with a camera icon on the left side. All the values you see here now are standard values from the camera. These are the same if you, for example, hit the reset movie shooting menu, then these values here are called and they are standard values, and we are going through them now. The first thing you have here, it's an optional thing. You can choose the file naming. Its standard is DSC, but you can also say MOV so that you have a prefix in front of your file name showing you that this is a movie and not a photo. Perfect. So now I will not follow the image area menu order. The first thing we do now is to correct the frame size and frame rate. So we are going for 4K, and 4K is a resolution of 3840 to 2160 pixels, and we are shooting it with a frame rate of 30 frames per second, 30 images per second. 30 images is in most cases better than 25 or 24 because it gives us very smooth motions in the video. And there's another reason why I do this. You can perfectly align and use these clips in 30p with, for example, 60p material that comes from a GoPro or an action cam. So yes, we are using 30p with 4K resolution here. And now you see why I didn't follow the menu order, because now after we've made the settings, some things in the menu are already grayed out and set with standard values. For example, the image area, which is now which we now can't use anymore because 4K uses a special area of the sensor and we don't have any chance to manipulate that. The movie quality is already set to high. To be honest, I never knew why somebody would buy a camera like the D7500 to make poor videos, so I always have it to high, even if I have a chance to set that value. The movie file type is MOV, and now the first thing we have to deal with is ISO sensitivity settings. So how are you shooting video? In 90% I'm using auto ISO. It's good, the camera is fast and the camera chooses the right ISO value to make the image a perfect balance between dark and very high lighted areas. So the most time I go to auto ISO control and turn it on. Of course, you can do ISO manually when you are shooting an image where you know nothing will change during the shooting and no lights will change. Then you can set your ISO to a hard value you set here on the camera, but in most times auto ISO is okay. The only thing we have to take care of is the setting for maximum sensitivity. At the moment, by default, the camera would go up to 51,200 ISO values, and this is something we maybe don't want, because I think that after using 10,000 as ISO, you have a problem that the image gets corrupted by noise or by color noise. So you don't want that. So I tell my camera, only go up to 10,000 of ISO value, that is fine, but not above that value. Perfect. Let's go back to the menu. White balance. Same thing here as with ISO. You can leave it to the camera to decide which white balance to use, but you can also say, okay, I'm sure I'm using the camera in a cloudy atmosphere, in direct sunlight or in artificial lights. In most times the auto setting is fine, only change it when the camera does something wrong. So I'll go to auto 1 here. Set picture control. This is the next point in the menu, and this is really important. Picture control is a feature by Nikon which lets the camera decide how to take photos or videos right at the moment of the recording. It is fine in some places, but sometimes it gives you problems, because if you say, okay, I want to shoot vivid video or monochrome video, for example, then you don't have the chance to later change it on the PC in post-production. So I'm always using flat, because flat is the template and the setting which gives us the most possibilities to later change the video without having it looking bad or something. So always go for flat here when you are taking movies. Even if the others may sound exciting, go to flat. You have the most options in post-production with the menu entry set to flat. So let's go to the next point. You see here that active delighting is also grayed out after we have changed the image area and the frame rates. So high ISO noise reduction, we leave it to normal, it does a good job. Flicker reduction is set to auto. This function does a good job on auto as well. If it somehow messes up with your image, then you can always decide if you want to go for 50 Hz or 60 Hz, depending on your local regional power grid. In most cases, the auto setting does everything fine. Microphone sensitivity is by default set to auto, and we will leave it there because we are shooting our video with the inbuilt microphone. As soon as we are using an external microphone, I would go for the microphone sensitivity to do it manual, and then you can level your microphone sensitivity on your own. As long as we're shooting with the inbuilt microphone, I always use auto. The same is with wind noise reduction, for example. This will eliminate wind in the microphone of a camera. I turn it on when I'm shooting outside with the inbuilt microphone, and I turn it off when I'm sure that I'm shooting inside a building where there is no wind, because it's a potential source of error. Let's get one step back to frequency response. Frequency response gives us two possibilities: wide range or vocal range. Those are both templates. If you are recording on the outside in nature, you want wide range to get the full set of all the audio available. If you want to record vocals and speech, then you go for voice. To be honest, I'm never using voice, regardless of if I'm shooting voice or if I'm shooting ambient sounds. I always use wide because I just don't like the sound of a noise frequency, of a voice frequency response. So I don't use this. So we've had wind noise reduction already. The next thing you see here is that the electronic VR is also shut off, because it's grayed out after we have selected the image formats and the frame rates. Time-lapse movie is also off. We don't want to use time-lapse at the moment, so just turn it off. This is everything in the movie shooting menu. We are right back at the beginning. Now we have set everything on our camera completely, and now we can go and shoot our video. So let's leave the menu. And the first thing to do to shoot video on the D7500 is that you see this little switch here. It is at the moment in photo mode, and now we can change the camera to video mode. When we now press the live view button, then we see the image area of 4K in our camera display. So the next thing you might want to do is the focus. And of course you can work with the autofocus, for example, by slightly pressing the release button. When I'm shooting, in most scenarios, I do not use the autofocus. I use manual mode for focus, so that I can really be sure that my image is sharp where I want it to be sharp. One thing back to autofocus. If you have autofocus available, you can also focus with the touch autofocus here. So you can touch the display, and the camera will automatically adjust the focus to the position you're shooting in. So after you have used the touch focus, turn it off, otherwise you might touch the display by fault and your focus will change. This is something you don't want. We have not yet cared about the aperture. Let's do that now. Aperture when filming is mostly the same as when you're doing photos. If you are having a low aperture, then you can see that the background against the camera now, for example, my D500 there, gets a little bit blurred. So we have our focus now on the camera. If you want the whole image to be more sharper, then you can increase the aperture so that the whole image gets sharp. It is something you can decide from whatever you are shooting. Maybe sometimes you want everything to be sharp. In other days you want to be the background, you want to have it blurred out, and you want to have your camera standing up against the background, for example, when you are losing a very low aperture, for example. So there's one thing to notice about aperture. When you are already shooting, then the camera will have a short moment where the light is changing. So the image gets darker or lighter for a small part of a second. Don't change the aperture when you are shooting, because this gives you this look also in the video, and you see that the image is flickering then because the camera needs some time. For example, if you are increasing the aperture now, then there is less light available for the camera, so the camera will have to increase the ISO, and this takes a moment and gives you this flickering in the video later. You see it here. ISO is increased by the increased aperture here. Other way around, if you decrease your aperture, the system will also decrease the ISO setting, and this gives you this flickering. So make sure before you start shooting you have the right aperture set, and then you can go shooting. So if you now want to record video, just have a look at this little tiny red button over here. This button starts the recording, so you have the recording sign in the upper left corner, and you can also stop the recording by pressing the little red button once again. When shooting, keep in mind that the camera has a limit of 29 minutes and 59 seconds, close to 30 minutes. After that, the recording will automatically stop. Of course, that's no problem. After that, you can just restart the recording and the camera will take another 30 minutes of video. So I hope this tutorial was interesting for you, and I wish you a great day. Please make sure to hit the subscribe button. See you.